The Filipino youth account for more than half of the total registered voters in the 2022 elections. How are young people changing the way we experience politics today? On this episode, we are talking to tireless Filipino millennials who are doing their best to make our votes counted and our voices heard. I'm Nicole Corato, and this is Meet the Millennials. In less than 2 months, Registro Mindoro drove 6,500 Mindoreños to register to vote. How did they do it, and what can we learn from their experience? Joining us today is Jerus Bantugan Reyes, one of the conveners of Registro Mindoro. Hi Jerus, welcome to the program.
Hi, Nicole, and good day to everyone.
Right, so your day job is you're an accountant, but on your spare time, you with 300 other volunteers of Registro Mindoro did a lot of work to encourage people to vote. How did you do it?
That's correct. I'm an accountant. We're also working with 300 youth volunteers in Oriental Mindoro, and in 2 months, we're able to register 6,500 voters for the 2022 national elections. Yung ginawa namin, very simple lang. We addressed the three major factors that we saw is affecting the low voter turnout in Oriental Mindoro. Number one, information. Two, transportation, and tapping into the enthusiasm of our youth.
And when we were talking a while ago, you mentioned to me that one of the most important achievements of your group is you went to the grassroots, you went to the communities yourselves. Tell us about that.
Because here in Oriental Mindoro, there are a lot of areas still considered GIDA or geographically isolated and disadvantaged areas. And on those areas, we really need to bring to them the services of the government, especially itong ating voter registration. Kasi sa mga areas na gano'n, mga bundok, and kailangan pang tumawid ng ilog, it's very hard for them to go to the municipal hall or the town center just to register. What we did is, dinala namin sa kanila, big chunk of our efforts are coming from the COMELEC office, but they're understaffed. And doon kami pumasok na through our volunteers, natulungan namin yung COMELEC office, dinala namin sa mga bundok, sa mga tabing dagat, sa iba't ibang barangay, yung registration natin, yung satellite registration natin. And we intensified our information drive para yung lahat ng gusto mag-transfer and gusto mag-register for the 2022 election is mai-register talaga natin.
So based on your experience talking to these communities, what were their hesitations? Ano yung mga alinlangan nila kung bakit ayaw nila magpa-register?
It's not alinlangan actually. There's this one story, a 60-year-old na lolo, nagpa-register siya, and then we asked him, bakit ngayon lang siya nagpa-register? And hindi ko naman alam na meron palang ganito. Wala namang ganito dati. So doon namin na-realize na giving them the information is very important. Lalo na in this time of pandemic na yung mobility natin nabawasan, but through our volunteers, nagawa natin siya.
So I'm learning a lot from this conversation. No? One is the importance of collaborating with COMELEC, and second is collaborating with the volunteers themselves. And I'm sure the volunteers have very different political beliefs. May pagkakaiba rin kayo ng opinion pagdating sa politika. How do you manage that difference of opinion when it comes to working with your fellow volunteers?
We told our volunteers that it is a non-partisan movement. But within our group, it's free to discuss kung sino yung sinusuportahan nila. Our group is safe space. Kumbaga, kung meron man silang gustong i-discuss na certain candidate, it's okay. Yung isang rule lang that we need to abide is we cannot and we must not endorse any candidate publicly as a coalition. Pero to express our personal beliefs, that's okay. And within our ranks, we can police each other. Kung meron ng misinformation or disinformation na nangyayari from our ranks, we can police them by freely discussing yung opinions nila.
Can you tell us more about that? How do you police each other? What if you see a fellow volunteer who, for example, perpetuates disinformation, yung main goal nga nung group ninyo is to provide information to people. How do we manage that?
kapag nag-discuss na kami within our group chat, for example, someone shared a misinformed or a disinformation, ang ginagawa namin is nire-research namin and isinishare din namin yung actual and factual na source nung correct information. Kasi hindi naman natin sila pwedeng kalabanin or awayin na lang basta-basta because in that way we cannot hindi na natin makukuha yung loob nila if talagang aatakihin natin sila. And they're from us. So we need to address the issue professionally.
Right. And I think this is very inspiring because a lot of us are starting to lose hope na never na tayo makakapag-change ng perspective ng ibang tao. But at least through your approach, you can at least correct this information by giving correct information. So we will continue this discussion later. But before we close this segment, Jerus, I want to ask you, what surprised you from this experience? What did you learn working with ordinary Filipinos, with ordinary volunteers, to encourage them to take part in the elections?
We thought that because we're in a pandemic, hindi na natin magagawa or hindi na namin magagawa yung ganito kalawak na campaign. Ang na-realize namin kapag in-address natin yung issues and binigyan natin laya yung kabataan na gawin yung tama at gawin yung passion nila, lalampas at lalagpas tayo sa objectives natin and mas makikita pa natin yung fire within them to really be of help to the community and serve our nation.
Right. Well, thank you, Jerus. We will continue this conversation later, but when we return, we will find out what influencers are doing to promote the integrity of our elections. This is Meet the Millennials. Our second guest is an actress, a youth leader, and co-convener of We the Youth Vote PH, a community dedicated to encouraging Filipinos to exercise our right to suffrage. Let's welcome to the show Rhea Atayde. Hi Rhea, welcome to the program.
Hi Nicole, thank you for having me.
Rhea, you have done something so wonderful. You and your colleagues organized 300 celebrities to work together to encourage people to register to vote and promote information about voting in your own spheres online. So why do you think it's important to bring influencers together in this election?
Well, I think, in We the Youth Vote, we believe that apart from influencers, each of us has a platform and, in our own social circles. And I feel like over the past few years, young people, or at least our generation, we've tended to shy away from using our platforms to voice out our concerns in society. Maybe because it's a little bit too polarizing for other people, and maybe because it might be too political. So we believe that by convincing influencers who do have a bigger following to voice out their concerns, we're able to bring back positive discourse in our social media platforms, and we're able to take the space back, to let the voice of the young people echo throughout social media. And if it takes the influencers to do that, then good, because we just want to get the message out there that it's okay to be critical, it's okay to show support for your candidate, it's okay to counter fake news with facts. And apart from that, of course, it's definitely okay to register in and vote in May 9, 2022.
So in your experience convincing influencers to, as you mentioned, use their platform to inform our voters about the elections and the issues at stake, what surprised you about engaging with them, and what also were the challenges that you faced?
I'll start with the challenges first. I think what challenged us the most is really the pandemic and, the limited space available. I feel like on ground, it's still different from being active in social media, diba? That's been such a challenge. But what surprised me the most is that there are a lot of people that joined in this movement, or in getting information out there, and they're doing it for free, just because they want, they advocate for the same thing, which is for people to vote, to make educated votes, and Yeah, like good governance in general, I guess.
So, when you talk to the influencers to be part of this community, parehas ba siya nung situation that Jerus also mentioned in the previous segment that you believe in different perspectives, you have different views on politics, you support different candidates, but you come together to promote issues of good governance and electoral integrity. Ganon din ba yun? Is this group also non-partisan?
Yes, we do have our personal beliefs. That's okay to share. And, we openly do that in the group as well. But more than that, we're non-partisan talaga.
Right. And I think that's fascinating because when we think of other influencers, a lot of them are also very vocal about the politicians that they're supporting these elections. But it's fascinating to see influencers come together, regardless of your political persuasions, to unite, right, for the cause of electoral integrity. But of course, Ria, I'd be remiss not to ask you about some influencers who are also responsible for perpetuating disinformation, fake news, and just really hateful narratives, right, about the elections. So, as someone in this space, what advice can you give us and your fellow influencers on how to deal with so much hate and disinformation online coming from popular influencers?
First, talaga, it starts with you. You have to fact check, definitely. Choose to look at objective stuff like journals and studies instead of just articles or opinion pieces. It's really the website. So that's my first tip. You don't want to be a perpetrator of fake news. That's so sad. But apart from that, in We the Youth Vote, we do pride ourselves in putting facts first. And apart from that, for our influencers and volunteers and partners, we started a series called Leksyon sa Eleksyon, which gives them the opportunity to learn more about all the information that's available. And for this, we've partnered with Facebook Digital and the FOI office for the webinars and fact checking. But if also you'd like to call somebody out, if you feel like somebody is sharing fake news, then my tip talaga is to be respectful. Engage in proper discourse instead of calling them stupid or discrediting their beliefs. So yeah, present
Right.
facts.
Right. And finally, Ria, you mentioned to me when we were talking the other day that anyone can actually be an influencer. You don't need hundreds and thousands of followers to be an influencer. Can you share us what you mean by this?
What I mean is each of us do have a platform. We have a platform. We're able to influence our own families, our friends, our schools, our communities, either online or offline, regardless if you have 1 million or 1,000 or just 10 followers. But, just you putting information out there, it has the power to make at least even just one person rethink and revisit their beliefs. And that's something that we strongly believe in.
Well, thank you, Ria. There's a lot more to discuss. So when we return, we will continue talking to Ria and Jerus to think about how young people are changing the way we experience politics today. You're still watching Meet the Millennials on CNN Philippines. Welcome back. You're still watching Meet the Millennials, and we are still with Jerus, Bantugan, Reyes, and Ria Atayde. All right, ang daming pending issues from our earlier conversation, so I'm grateful that you stayed with us to continue the conversation. I think yung first topic na gusto ko lang balikan is about the importance of speaking up, right? I mean, I think during elections, voice is as important as vote, right? And I think one hesitation of many young people today is speaking up online. A lot of us are afraid of cancel culture, smart shaming. Ria, based on your experience, how can we effectively use our voices online while also remembering that speaking up online can be quite scary?
I think it has a lot to do with researching and before you post anything, like think 10 times. Check Google multiple times if you have to. When you post something, I understand that it can be scary, but realize that you getting information out there is actually helping other people. I mean, not to sound self righteous or anything, no, Nicole, but like if you do have access to the right information and you're sure it's the right information, and then why not share that? Because not everybody has the same access as you do. I mean, with the algorithms and all of that, diba? Like the internet has just been, if you Google something, if you want to prove something, whatever it is, you can prove it. Like you can easily find stuff that will prove that true or prove that to be true. But all it takes is really researching and checking also if the websites that you're reading from are actually legitimate and credible sources.
No, absolutely. And how about you, Jerus? Obviously, your experience is grounded. It's happening in real life, so to speak. You're doing your campaigns in person. How do you respond to, for example, people who just feel so hopeless or skeptical na bakit ako magpaparehistro, bakit ako boboto, pare-parehas lang naman yung tumatakbo, wala namang magbabago. So how do you deal with that skepticism?
We often get that question, no, na pwede siguro na hindi na kami bumoto kasi isa lang naman yung boto namin. And isa lang yung sagot namin lagi. Kapag hindi tayo bumoto, hinayaan na natin magdesisyon yung ibang tao para sa atin. And ina-address namin yung mga skeptics in a way na tinatap pa rin namin yung skills and talents ng youth natin. For example, we launched a stage play titled Ang Kwento ni Juan Tamad na Naging Juan Tama. Yung kwento nito is dun sa mga tinatamad bumoto. And pinakita namin why yung hindi natin pagboto makaka-apekto hindi lamang sa sarili natin, but it will affect everyone. Through that play, marami kaming nahikayat na lumabas and magparehistro kahit na nasa pandemic tayo ngayon.
Yeah, I think what I like about your story is that parang it challenges our view na parang feeling natin sobrang information overload na yung nangyayari ngayon. But actually, what I'm getting from your story is that marami pa ring tao yung walang access sa information about elections and about politics, right? So, how do you think we can scale this up? What can other young people do to do this in their own communities, even after these elections, Jerus?
Ang advice namin sa mga kabataan natin is tell stories. Kasi beyond the numbers, beyond the statistics, our emotion, our stories, o na base sa own experiences natin, and hindi basta opinion, then nga, based din sa facts, is mas malaki yung maiaambag.
Speaking of emotions, Ria, obviously online is a space where our emotions often run high. We engage in clickbait, madaling ma-high blood. What advice can you give our fellow netizens on how we can engage in politics online nang hindi masyadong naha-high blood, or to keep our composure when we continue our conversations with other people?
What I noticed online, if you post sometimes very like out of your emotions, you tend to argue, you know what I mean? Pangit ka rin eh. You know what I mean? Like not serious and factual information. So you won't be able to achieve anything if you do it disrespectfully, any other way, because then they'd feel like they're being attacked. Let's try to really engage in healthy and respectful discourse by setting an example yourself. Don't judge their stance, but instead try to educate, enlighten, and maybe inspire. I mean, we all do want the same thing naman for the country, diba?
Right, absolutely. Well, we asked actually our netizens to have a sense of how they feel about the elections. So what we're going to do is we're going to show some pictures, and I'm going to ask for your reactions about these sentiments that we see online. So this is the first picture. All right, Ria, what can you say about this picture? This is how one netizen feels about the upcoming elections.
I get it. We're all very confused and maybe a little bit overwhelmed with everything going on. So hold tight and try to gather information so you're not as confused.
All right, next picture. All right, we are seeing a circus. Jerus, any thoughts?
Ito rin yung feeling nung mga ano natin, no, ng netizens natin na yung nangyayari sa paligid natin talaga, circus na. Minsan kapag masyado ng pinagsasawalang bahala yung obligation and yung responsibility na dapat gampanan nila, yun, nagiging katawa-tawa na lang tayo. At yun yung dapat nating baguhin sa darating na 2022 elections natin. Bigyan natin ng bigat yung responsibilidad natin bumoto.
Actually, Ria, in your observations, do you think nag-a-appeal pa sa mga millennials and Gen Z yung mga campaign strategy na yun nga, parang clown, para tayong nasa perya?
Based on how I see it on social media, I don't know if I'm stuck in an echo chamber, but based on how I've seen it, Yeah, everybody's kind of tired of it. Everybody wants straightforward and, just be real.
Right. Last picture for this segment. Every vote must be counted. So I think this is a good way to wrap up our discussion. Jerus, what can you say about this picture and your final thoughts before we end the program?
Yes, Nicole, no? Ito yung sinasabi natin na what's important is you go out, register, and vote. Kasi lagi nga namin sinasabi sa Reyes Mindoro, tayo ang bubuo ng kwento ng Mindoro, tayo ang bubuo ng kwento ng Pilipinas. Dahil tayo ang magpapanday ng maayos, nagkakaisa, at maunlad na komunidad tungo sa masiglang bukas at makapangyarihan ang bawat rehistradong at mobotong Pilipino.
Right. And finally, Ria, final thoughts.
I think this is just another testament to the fact that as maybe disengaged we might tend to be, your vote does matter. And as much as you feel like it's impossible and change is not going to happen, things are going to be heavy for the next couple of years, as cliche as it sounds, that change really starts with your vote. That's you taking your power back.
What a wonderful way to end the program. Thank you, Jerus. Thank you, Ria, for reminding us that we still need to work really hard, both online and on the ground, to change the way we do politics in the Philippines. Thank you, everybody, for watching Meet the Millennials. I'm Nicole Corato. See you again soon.